Hi, I'm Kate. Welcome to Blooms in the Yard. Today we're going to do a front garden tour, which includes my potager and my sun border, and my front garden is pretty much all sun. I live in Shawnee, Kansas in zone 6B, and we have lived here for 11 years. We did start our gardening in the backyard and then kind of moved to the front, so most of this is going to be 7 years old or less. So the back garden is almost all shade, and so that's why our vegetable garden is in the middle of our front yard. So we do have this fenced in area because we have a lot of rabbits, and so it's pretty different for a garden in the US. And I do want to say thank you to those who have subscribed. It really means a lot to me. It's been 6 weeks since I did my last front garden tour, and a lot has changed, so let's get to it. So here is the view when I come out my front door. Kind of have a little path going straight to the vegetable garden so I can go get my tomatoes or my herbs or whatever. And then to the left is my sun border. And then my little front entrance. And this tree has been trimmed to just kind of wrap around you when you come in. So I think we will start today. Maybe just going around the potager garden. So this might be the ugliest spot. We're going to start with the ugliest spot. That's the Baptisia, and they look really pretty when they come out, but then they kind of splay out. And then here's just the little gate into the potager garden. I have some lamb's ear, some zinnias, gomphrena, and golden oregano in this area. My goal in starting this channel was to help people that want to know what plants are easy to grow in an area where it might be a little bit difficult to grow due to really hot temperatures or really cold temperatures. And I don't baby things, like I don't put fertilizer on roses every month. I do not grow annuals if they are not easy to grow. So these zinnias here are easy to grow. Then kind of weaved into this little trellis are my raspberries. There's more raspberries inside the fence. They did start inside the fence and they made their way outside, and I've just left a little patch out here. I'm excited about this plant. I finally figured out what it was. I had gotten it from the native plant sale last fall. It is blue cardinal flower, or blue lobelia. He really goes down in there and kind of shovels his butt back out. Kind of entertaining to watch. It's really pretty. And I mean, I literally forgot it was here, so no babying has been going on there. Then, let's see if I can get that to focus. These morning glories did reseed from last year, so I didn't plant any here. Now I'm mostly into growing things for ornamental value, but I do grow some edibles. Now the edibles I grow, my goal is that they be pretty too. So I really like cherry tomatoes because I like that they kind of grow in this, what's the word I'm looking for? Not bundle. Oh gosh, like grapes, right? Okay, I'll have to think of the word for that. My words don't always come easy. But I've had the morning glories and tomatoes growing together here for the last few years. I actually wasn't going to plant any morning glories here this year because last year they really took over. But they went ahead and reseeded, and I was like, well, they're getting a later start, so maybe they won't be quite so crazy. So down here, this iris is really pretty in the spring. It's a blue, kind of similar, very similar to that lobelia, the color. My pretty dahlia is being covered up. Oh, and I didn't get it deadheaded. Let's see if we can get a good picture of this Creme de Cassis dahlia. I tried to deadhead everything, but that one was hiding from me. So yeah, we got the dahlia, the iris, the zinnias. Here we have this purple sedum. I'm not sure on the, it's one of the Sun Sparkler series. Then this vine growing behind is the Black-Eyed Susan vine. It's not blooming, and it has totally eaten up a clematis. So I've thought about taking it out, but I'm afraid I'll damage the clematis. So that's where we're at with that. This is the downy skullcap, which still has some blooms. So that's been blooming for a decent while. Then the rose marble salvia, which is really a favorite. I don't think it's not had blooms since the beginning of June. This is a spilled wine weigela and a golden oregano. The one that looks a little bit sad is the diamond frost euphorbia, which the bunnies have been eating on. Okay, so the sweet summer Botanical hydrangea is very droopy and floppy, unfortunately. I think the Black-Eyed Susan vine's holding that one bloom up there, but it doesn't bother, like as I'm driving by or something, it really doesn't bother me. It'd be great if it stood up more, but it's not the end of the world for me. Then on the left here is my Opulus viburnum, which has like big snowball blooms in the spring. And it's kind of here giving me some privacy in my potager garden from the street. Underneath this Botanical hydrangea, which is not always covered up, it is covered up right now. I have a lot of this sedum kind of flowing onto my little rock wall, and then there's a hosta in there, some ajuga, and some lady's mantle. And I did just stick this yew here. We'll see what it decides to do. Here I have pig squeak is what they call it here, Virginia, I believe. I don't think it's going to bloom for me here, so I might get rid of it. And then I have a spruce, but of course the star in this little area is more of this Creme de Cassis dahlia, which is looking really great. The underside of it is really cool too. It gives it a cool two-tone. A little bit of cucumber coming over from the potager there. And then I have just a little line or hedge of this sedum. I think it's the brilliant sedum because it turns kind of a bright yellow, like the leaves turn a bright yellow in the fall, which I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it got some rot. So if it looks a little sad over here on the end, I think it got a little bit too much shade from all this asparagus and zinnias and a little bit too much water. Then in front of my potager, this leads off from the driveway. Really simple here. I just have a little bit of ground cover sedum and 2 boxwoods. And then right inside on either side, I have some zinnias and dahlias. This is the Bennery's Giant Wine zinnia, and I do have a sun gold tomato growing in there with it. Oh, there's a pretty dahlia in there. We'll see it when we go inside. So, yes, mostly the giant wine zinnias on that side. On this side, I have a little bit of the zinnias. Some of them are kind of flopping down there. The tomato on this side is the Mountain Magic, and then this dahlia, which is doing really well. Got quite a few blooms on it. I believe it is the Lilac Perfection or Lavender Perfection. Ooh, or Lilac Time. It's one of those. I'll see if I can look it up for sure. And then we have down here some lamb's ear, apentas, and the little bush there is an itea, a little Henry itea. This area I cleaned out. Well, I trimmed back all of the penstemon. I have the purple penstemon and the Husker red penstemon. And so those have all been trimmed back. And then we just have some annual gomphrena growing in here right now. There's a pretty dahlia that the label said it would get tall, and it didn't get as tall. So it's not in the best place, but I do really like the color on the leaves. The leaf color looks really pretty with the bloom color, I think. Got a couple more coming too, so that's a pretty one. Here's our ugly baptisia. Okay, so we're gonna go into the potager now. I have another dahlia here on the left. Let's see. It's looking really pretty this morning. This one, I don't think I know the type or the name because it was definitely one that I overwintered. On the right here, I've got my raspberry patch. Sorry, was on my right. I just turned around, now it's on my left. Okay, so I've got my raspberries here, then a really big sun gold, which really needs to be harvested on. I thought about trying to call somebody up that's got kids and saying, come have fun harvesting cherry tomatoes. Over here, I did kind of borrow some pots from this area. So we're down to just 1 pot of flowers and 1 pot with my water lily in it. There's a little bit of black-eyed Susan blooming there. And then we've got the morning glory. So we've got 2 vines, a little bit of pentas. Here is a little bit of celosia. This is the, not sure, can't remember that one. It's not impressed me a lot. I don't plan on growing it again next year. I tried 3 this year, and that one was not my favorite. Okay, the trailing lantana is a fail for me. It's probably not getting enough sun here. So altogether, not the best container I've ever done. In here I just have the frogbit and the water lily. And then This is my one cucumber plant that I have going in here. Below it, there are strawberries, but they're mostly being smothered by a dahlia that I did not stake up. This is another one that came back from last year. I had so many come back, and we did not have a particularly warm winter, but what we did have was a lot of snow, and I think that that snow insulated my dahlias. A lot of them came back. I'd say around 6 of them came back, and the rest of them I had dug up, so it might have been even more. Here's my hot peppers, and down here I just have some decorative peppers. So down below, decorative peppers, right above it, some hot peppers and some sweet peppers. This is a kale, which is 4 feet tall right now. I've just kind of left it for the foliage color. And here's a gorgeous dahlia. A little bit of dew on everything this morning. And then all my zinnias. And the sun gold tomato. Here's the sun just starting to shine through. Oop, there's a boxwood. Okay, I think just peppers. I think we got that area covered. And then over here is my Mountain Magic tomato. Down below it, I have, the zinnias are really on that rosemary. Let's rescue the rosemary real quick. So there's the rosemary. Definitely not getting as much sun as it would like to. Then we have these white begonias and some parsley down back in there. We have tons of the Mountain Magic tomatoes, as you can see. Again, they need to be harvested. We have this rose just about to open here. This is the Lady in Red climbing rose. Most of the other blooms are about spent. It's the best smelling rose ever, in my opinion. It's very fruity if you like that. I have a large basil here. It's a Genovese basil. And then down below it, more of the white begonias and a variegated oregano on the corner there. The raspberries back behind the gate. And then here are my boxwoods. A couple of weeds in there. I did not weed in here. So yeah, some of my green beans have gotten all the way to the top, which I love. So that is the Potager garden. Let's venture out of here. And here's my view coming out of my Potager garden back to my front door. And I did cut the Annabelle hydrangeas back, but you can see that I trimmed basically all of the blooms that were hanging over onto the sidewalk badly. There's still a little bit of overhang, but you can see there's still plenty of blooms on there. So we can look real quick at this little kind of entryway garden. I call it my rock garden because there's a big boulder in there. Okay, I've repeated a lot of plants in here, but let's look first. This is the wild ageratum. So these blooms will get bigger as time goes on, but they're just starting to give me a little bit of purple here. Then I have the Zahara cherry zinnias, two different coleus. So I've got the bright chartreuse green and the kind of purplish red. And then I have the dark opal basil, some irises and some daisies, which I've cut to the ground. And then we pretty much just kind of repeat those things. So I've got a couple different kinds of coleus in here. Probably some of them aren't meant for sun. This is a pretty sunny spot for sure. So a great example of what foliage can do. Not a lot blooming in here, but it looks full of color. Just keep walking around, but all those same plants are repeated. And these zinnias have been a richer color. They're a little bit washed out looking right now. This plant that, this bush here, it's a weigela. It's the, I think, more colorful weigela. I showed in another video that the daisies kind of shaded out half of it when they were taller and blooming, and then when I cut the daisies back, I ended up with half of a weigela. So next year I'm just gonna get rid of those daisies, and that weigela should look a lot better. But yes, you can see all the same plants repeated in here. There's a little sedum that's just been there forever. This is a tricky area because in the winter, completely shade, never sees the light of day. And then in the spring, you know, it goes from being completely shaded to being completely sun. And then in the summer, you've got a lot of sun. So, you know, that would be tricky for evergreens or anything like that. And that's kind of why I stick with a lot of annuals, because of the weird sun situation. This tree is I think prairie fire crabapple. Then I've got my 3 Annabelle hydrangeas. Now I know the yews look really silly right now. I had heard somewhere that with these tall yews that you have to not trim that upward branching in order to get them to get tall, if you want them to get tall, and I definitely do. So my husband even commented, and he like has nothing to do with the garden and he doesn't care, and he was like, those look pretty dumb. But I'm gonna give it a year or two and see how those do. So this is my more simple area. I've got the yews and the pachysandra, which are both evergreen. And then over here, the ground cover is vinca, which is also evergreen, and my boxwood. So I've got a lot more evergreen interest right up next to the house. Here I've got one astilbe and several of these hosta. I'm not sure of the kind. There was one in back when I moved in, and I've just divided it. Here I have some mouse ears hosta and an Empress Woo hosta. Then there's a ruby slippers oak leaf hydrangea. So this is my one area in the front yard that does get shade from these red bud trees. Oh, we better show the pretty fountain area. I do love this little inviting entry area. I do love having that little shady, inviting area right by my front porch. So let's look at the sun border. Things I love and things I don't love in here. I really am enjoying these crepe myrtles. These are the Great Bellini crepe myrtles, the purple. And with them, I have the pentas. And so I'm not minding that, liking that area. I did cut this salvia rose marvel all the way back when I planted this weigela, which doesn't look like much right now. But I wanted like a little bit of contrast and foliage color here. So the darker red leaves I think will look good here eventually. What I'm not loving in this particular area is, I don't mind the gomphrena. I wish the gomphrena would stop trying to clobber my bird's nest spruce here, because I've cut it back and I've moved it and I've cut it back, and no matter what I do, it's like, no, I really want to grow right on that spruce. Now, I don't like these peppers, and I've thought I might take those out and try to maybe put them in a container or something, because I'm just not loving those in here at all. So I have the gomphrena. I have this phlox, which has just been blooming forever, probably about 2 months now. So loving that. The Millennium Allium, now we did have a week of really hot and it just can't do it. And I know people say my Millennium Allium bloomed forever, but when it gets hot here, they start to turn brown pretty quickly for us. There is a spirea hiding back there, a little bit of pink blooms. And then this clematis does not look great. I think I'm gonna cut that back. I'm not worried about it. It just doesn't look good. Then in here, a really pretty dahlia that's flopped over. If you want to see all my garden mistakes, this is one of them, and I have a garden regrets video, and that is on there. I wanted to show this plant, which is 4 o'clocks, and the reason it's called 4 o'clock is that it basically opens when it's shady and closes when it's sunny. So the idea is they open at 4 in the afternoon. Now, it doesn't get shady here till 7 or 8, but that's the idea behind the name. So they open in the morning, in the evening, and then on cloudy days. Now usually I have them all throughout this whole area here, and so there's a little path here which I can only use in the spring before everything grows up, but usually they're all throughout there. This year I did not let them grow in very much because I had a garden tour, and I pulled up all the seedlings so it wouldn't look all weedy, like here's a seedling and here's a seedling, and you can see I've got some more coming up back there, and I just didn't want it to look all weedy during that garden tour in June. So I actually thought I might not get any this year, but I'm thrilled to have this one here because it's definitely filling in a gap. And you can see it's kind of got a look, it's a little bit taller, but it's kind of got the look of like a bubblegum vista petunia, which I really struggle to grow petunias here. And I know like everyone else seems to have a lot of luck with that plant, but it seems to struggle with the heat. And it's like if you miss one watering, it just doesn't recover like some plants recover. Now that's the petunias. This plant's amazing. I have never had to give any supplemental water to this. So it's a really great plant. My neighbor grew some of these last year, but it was like a special variety, and it was really pretty, much larger flowers and sort of a peachy color, and had like a lot of kind of variation in the color. So this is definitely something to look into. This is a blue point juniper, and I'm wanting to do some other tall things here. I think I'm going to put a tree right here because that way I don't have to look at that car. So I do want to put some more tall screening plants in here. Here we have an autumn joy sedum and another dahlia, another one that came back from last year and is just living its best life right now. Lots of zinnias in here. I should have come over here first before the sun came up. More of the Venery's Giant Wine and some black-eyed Susans. So this is kind of a nice area right now. Lots of blooms going on here. I cut back. I know people are going to say you should have left the seed heads for the birds, but I did cut back. I just don't like ugly things. And to me, the coneflower spent blooms look ugly. I avoided even having this plant for years because I think they're that ugly. So I cut them all back. And I know that when cutting back the uglies, I probably cut back some of the new buds too. But I did end up with 2 more blooms anyway. So there's just, you know, we all have our garden quirks. Some sage down at the bottom and a sedum at the bottom. This is my bee balm, which is done blooming, and that catmint looks kind of terrible right now. Then I have the Colorado blue spruce, and we'll go around and look at that dahlia here in a minute. I'm embarrassed to even show these containers because I moved them here to fill in this gap, and then I went out of town for the weekend and thought they'd be okay, and they were crispy when I got back, but oh well, that's what happens sometimes. Some more of the sun sparkler sedum and an iris. That blue in the back there is the Sirius Blue Sage, Sirius Blue Salvia. I can never remember which one, but it's from Baker Creek, a seed, an annual that I grow from seed. These catmint or nepeta are looking a lot better. The 2 purple ones here. Some red sedum and some golden oregano. So this golden oregano is really kind of light and bright here, getting lots of sun. And then the crepe myrtles are really looking great. This is the cherry mocha barista crepe myrtle. I have 3 of them here. I think they look pretty nice with that red coleus in the back. And that hydrangea is a bobo, which I just planted in July. So it's looking pretty good for that fact. So you can see I'm not repeating a whole lot of plants. I don't have a ton of space and I like plants. So I've got a little bit of everything, but I'm trying to keep the color palette like yellows and greens and whites, and then like purples and pinks. And sometimes those pinks are getting close to a reddish pink. I just built this to tour in a video, and then in my week in the garden, which I just posted not too long ago, I put it here and planted a Rigucci clematis underneath it. I moved that Rigucci clematis from somewhere and cut it back, so we're hopeful. And then this salvia I did cut back to the ground as well. Here's a pretty dahlia with the sun shining through right now. This is another one that waiting for the car to pass by. This is another one that I held over from last year inside and then planted here. So I'm not 100% sure on the kind. I always label them and then the labels get all messed up and wonky. I mostly cut back these black-eyed Susans. Most of them were spent, but I left what was still looking good. Some lamb's ear and sedum here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this very well. The sun's coming up on me. Weigela. This is a Wine and Roses Weigela. And then here is a spirea. Somebody gave me a bunch of little baby spireas at one point, and I've just kind of put them in different places around. Those are daisies on the left there that I cut back, and a blue star juniper. Now we're still waiting on this showy goldenrod to do something fabulous. We're looking forward to that. It's really tall. It's like, you know, when cornfields in Iowa get really tall, that's what that's looking like. It's about 6.5 or 7 feet tall. This Dahlia is gorgeous. A little bit of dew on it. I just want to stand here for a long time and stare at that Dahlia. It's so pretty. So the only thing that survived in this container was the annual vinca. Everything else bit the dust. The only thing that survived in this container was the cinnamon basil. Well, and that succulent, which I'm actually going to borrow for another project. But the sun's really coming up on us over here. I do have 3 of these gold mop cypress, kind of all being swallowed up by other things. I need to rescue them pretty soon. And I'm gonna quickly kind of move over here out of the sun. So another Bennery's Giant Wine getting powdery mildew pretty bad at this point. Down here, the ground covers are curly marjoram and the sedum that I kind of have growing everywhere. Here I have a little tiny bit of blooms left on the coreopsis, threadleaf coreopsis, and then a boxwood and this little rock wall here. And then my black-eyed Susans. We're gonna move on because it is just too sunny there. But you can kind of see that this border on this side, I try to do a little more low maintenance on this side because I'm not seeing it as much, so things can kind of slip through the cracks. I have an arborvitae here, more of that blue iris on either side of the arborvitae, and it is a really pretty blue color in spring. Here I have my thyme and my bloody cranesbill geranium with one little bloom right now. And then I cut back this Kirigami oregano, a boxwood. When things start to look too messy, they got to be cut back. I try to do these little kind of moments where there's just layers, like here and then there and then there. So hopefully we can go check out the Mailbox Garden before the sun gets too crazy over there. All right, here is the Mailbox Garden. There's some craziness going on. My friend gave me this eucalyptus and I didn't know where to put it, and I just stuck it here. I've got it in some pots and stuff, but you don't necessarily notice it. It's gorgeous. I just have to find the right spot for it. And she kind of felt the same way. Like, where is the best spot for this? So I think planted in a group with a lot of it together, and obviously further back, not right in front of a border. We're gonna take a look at my maybe favorite big success this year, which is this Sunday Wine Red Celosia. So it is actually the next morning, And I just decided to come back out here and film this one area, the Mailbox Garden, because the sun was really glaring. But here we have the Blue Queen Salvia. I started with 3 plants that I grew from seed, and then it has reseeded itself a little bit. I did cut a bunch of it back, but this one I didn't cut back. Well, I trimmed it back, but not to the ground. So that one still has some blooms, so that's something to keep in mind. But the ones back there actually looked pretty bad. They were getting more shade, so that's why I did cut those all the way back. These are, to me, the crowning glory of the garden right now. It is the Sunday Wine Red Celosia. And I mean, look at this foliage. It is absolutely perfect. There's not one bug bite or bit of black spot or fungus like everything else seems to have in August. So I think it's a perfect plant. This bigger one on the left is the one that got eaten by rabbits. So interesting. And then this peony is the Sarah Barnhart. It has the double light pink blooms. This is the Fail. This is the Amore Plum Salvia. And I mean, I would just take it out if I had anything else to put here. And I may just take it out and leave it blank. That's how bad it is. And here, this is looking pretty. I have Russian sage and cardinal basil. This vinca here, I collected the seed 1 year, probably 5 years ago, and I've just grown it ever since. And at this point, I just call it Kate's vinca because it's much more kind of like easy to grow and gets bigger and fuller than like the other vinca that I end up buying at stores or I've ordered now some other seeds, and this one just always does really well. So I just keep it going. I have 3 sunshine ligustrum back there, and the plant that is covered by the bunny cover is a Rose of Sharon, a dark lavender chiffon Rose of Sharon. Here's the eucalyptus. Now, I will say about this eucalyptus, it smells wonderful. I, for some reason, assumed that it would be difficult to grow. My friend grew it from seed. She said super easy, really high germination rate. And, I've had no problems growing it here in my yard. So I probably will be growing that from seed in the future. This cardinal basil's more flappy than the one on the other side. And then it's starting to flop over onto my petite knockout roses. But these are looking pretty good. Here we go. How pretty does that look with that eucalyptus? Very pretty. And I also think that the petite knockout roses look good with these basil, the cardinal basil. I love how we have the blue here, and then this is the Serious Blue Salvia, and then in the back, the Russian sage, the layers. It's hard to create these sort of vista layers when you have such a small space and you're surrounded by other people's houses. So when I'm able to accomplish it, I like to show that. There's one little corner that looks decent from the street. The front of the Mailbox Garden is it's pretty terrible. It really is. I mean, there are a few things blooming. I've got the Cardinal basil. There's a few Dahlias in there, but overall, it doesn't look fabulous. But we've got, I think this is not, living up to its full potential right here. This is the wild ageratum. I figured, I'll put that next to the street. It's really hardy, but it's a little messy when you stand back. We've got this Cardinal basil, and the Serious Blue Salvia is the blue behind that Cardinal basil. This red foliage is a sand cherry. Oh, right here it doesn't look terrible. Just don't look down. This is where it gets sad. So the creeping phlox was always here when we had our big tree here. This area was just pretty bare. So I just recently, like in the last month, I stuck a couple of baby catmints and a little bit of sedum. So this sedum, the catmint, and then the grape hyacinths started coming up. So, and then also some sage started reseeding. This is something I grew from seed. So now just right here looks a bit of a mess, but if you look up, it's not too bad. So this bunny cover, I have another one of those Rose of Sharon, chiffon Rose of Sharon. There are, like, this is a dahlia. I think the dahlias are part of the problem because they're not quite blooming. They're not doing as well as all the other dahlias. It's probably either lack of water because it's right on the edge of the street and the sprinkler doesn't hit it that much. And when I say the sprinkler, like every 3 or 4 days, I will set up the sprinkler if things are looking really terrible. So we don't have a sprinkler system, but I don't have time to hand water everything. So I'll just, when things are getting pretty dire, I will set up the sprinkler and give everything a drink. So anyway, I think the main reason that everything in this area is struggling right next to the street is just the soil, the poor soil. So I'm going to try to address that with some compost. And then here is the purple smoke bush. I think this is Winecraft Black, if I remember correctly. And I will be moving it to the sun border to hopefully get big and be kind of a screening plant over there. It's got really pretty leaves. It's definitely not gonna live up to its potential here because I think it looks best when the sun is shining through. The sun border's on the west side of my yard, so I'll get that nice west sun shining through it. I don't like the smoky blooms on this. I think it looks weird and messy, so I will cut it back so that I, like, once it gets bigger, I'll, either deadhead or cut it back so that I don't have to look at those blooms because I don't like them. And I know people do. It's just different styles. There's no right or wrong. I don't think there's right or wrong. So then I have this crepe myrtle, which is the only plant, I believe, well, other than maybe like some of the redbud trees, but the only thing that is still here from the original owners. Actually, one of the very few things that's been here since we moved in. When we moved in, it was this crepe myrtle and a bunch of yucca, which all I have to say about that is yuck. I don't like it. We got rid of it at our old house through much digging and travail. And the first thing I did was get rid of it here, put it on the curb. My neighbor planted it just up the street. I was like, I still have to look at it. But yeah, this is a pretty decent sized crepe myrtle. It does die to the ground here every year. And then the tree is a columnar maple. It's Armstrong Gold. I ran into my neighbor yesterday. Well, I was going to video and she was gonna sit on her porch like a couple feet away. And I told her I started a YouTube channel. And she said, oh, she was excited and stuff. And then later she's like, I did wonder why you were, outside talking to yourself so much. So, my biggest fear came true. People were questioning my sanity, and I survived it. Okay, let's move over here and get out of the sun. This is my, I don't know, I guess you'd call it the driveway garden. Still trying to get out of the sun. There we go. Finally. Okay, so over here, I have my magnolia tree. And believe it or not, this may look like a stump. This is a branch. This is a branch from our cottonwood tree that fell down. And I have another large branch in the back. But yeah, our cottonwood tree is gone now. We took it down in February, but I have a couple of things to remember it by. That is a catmint, Walker's Low catmint. And then I've heard this just called stringy sedum. It looks okay right now. It looks gorgeous in the spring. It looks just like this beautiful bright green moss. So that's why I leave it there. And it's with the daffodils, really pretty. I do have a hard time growing a lot of things underneath this magnolia. I've planted several hostas that haven't done that well. This hosta, I think it's the Patriot. I planted 3 of those and I only have 1 left. And then just this year, I put a Great Expectations hosta back there, thinking, well, if I plant a huge one, maybe it will, not be huge, but will live. So that's an experiment. On this little trellis, which you can't even see at this point, I have both Morning Glories and Black-Eyed Susans. Now, I planted the Black-Eyed Susans this year. The Morning Glories have reseeded from past years. And then I just have my hedge of emerald green arborvitae, and below that, lamb's ear. So this is a pretty simple area, but I think, it's when you have so much going on, it can be good to have those more simple areas. This hydrangea is a Firelight Hydrangea. Let's get a close-up of that. It's been hot, but it's starting to turn pink here. Out of the panicle hydrangeas, this one for me turns pink the best. And I know you're like, oh, that doesn't look that good. But in Kansas, where it's hot and we don't have cool nights, this is kind of as good as it gets for the pink on the hydrangeas, on the panicles. Down here, I did just plant a Wine and Roses Weigela to get some red foliage in this area with the blue going on with the lamb's ear. I think will be good. Below that, I have some daisies, which I might take out. Down here, I just have a couple of different sedums. So the west sun shines here, and I don't always get the hose over here as often as I do to other places. So I try to plant things that'll be pretty hardy and not need babying. So I've got some sedums and some iris. This is a sea green juniper that is covering up our electric box for us. And then a lilac, which does not look good right now. It's got some fungus or something going on the leaves, you can see. We've just had a lot of rain and sometimes that happens. This area, I cut back the peonies because they did have powdery mildew. This dahlia flopped over, And I mean, I know I'm supposed to stake these guys. I'm not like unaware, but I just didn't get it done. It's been a busy year. So I'm like, oh, I'll just let that flop over where the peonies were. And then I actually just maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago moved this wild ageratum here just to have something. So I know the sun's shining. It's kind of hard to see, but at least I've got something going on there for now. This is an area I'm thinking about making changes. I don't love that the lilac is right in front of the sea green juniper. So, the sea green juniper is doing exactly what I wanted it to as far as covering up this electric box. So, the lilac might have to go. It's been a tricky area. I used to have ground cover where the grass is, and when that storm drain can back up, and so it just ended up working out better. There's a storm drain there. It ended up working out better to have grass. Now I'm considering going back to ground cover, but I'm like, maybe that would not be smart. Okay, so here we have our magnolia. Got a couple future projects going on there next to that container. We'll go look at that container in a second. But here is the front garden kind of overview. So again, that trailing lantana, not really doing much for me right now. Here I have a little container with some succulents, not getting nearly as much sun as it would like to get. It's shaded by this spirea, and then a really pretty container with some succulents. This guy's looking really pretty simple. The coleus, the vinca, the succulent, and then that, I'm not gonna remember the name of that, euphorbia. Something falls. Now this, it's not getting probably enough sun for this diamond frost euphorbia to do what it would like to do, because this is the north side of the house. But wow, loving that container. So here, my little path to the backyard, path to the back garden. I have the hostas on the right and the spirea on the left, and then this red coleus. And then here I have this boxwood. Oh, before I took one more step, I was like, oh wait, there's been a big spider web. There he is. He's huge. Let's see. I don't think you can see him. Oh yeah, he's really big. Ooh, he's creepy. I don't like that at all. Okay, so instead of walking through there, we're gonna go around on the outside here. And this is actually a really pretty view. I love this view right here. If you can just ignore the air conditioner on the left side. This is Bettany down here. It's in the lamb's ear family. So rabbits don't eat it, which I like. I have this clematis kind of trying to cover up some utilities here. I've simplified this area a bit. There were some annuals that weren't looking great growing here. The red flint ageratum, not looking great. So I just took it out and thought, well, we could just have things be a little more simple. A lot of evergreen interest in this area. So this geranium, big root geranium, stays usually evergreen for us, semi-evergreen, and then the boxwood, and then the winter green euonymus. I think winter green euonymus. This is a witch hazel. Virginia Prospect, I believe. Or Virginia witch hazel, little prospect, something like that. It's variegated, and I've kind of trained it to be a little more flat against this wall. I'm been really working on, having the layers, the low, medium, tall, going up, and yet things that don't get too wide. And so my solution for that over here on the left has been this purple pillar Rose of Sharon. The only negative to the purple pillar is that it does reseed pretty readily, so I've been having to really stay on top of that. More of this red coleus, and then this sort of bright green bush here is the Itea, Little Henry. And then I have a grapevine growing on this arbor. Got hit pretty bad by the Japanese beetles. They are done now, so it's starting to grow back. This is the Graham Blandy boxwood. And then I have a container here with just some red geraniums. And I do like the color of those next to the teal trellis. So this is pretty narrow. I would say about 6 feet, but I've tried to, make the best of it. This is a hydrangea. It is a macrophylla hydrangea, the only one I have in my yard. It was given to me by a neighbor. It did bloom this year, so I'm going to give it a chance until it disappoints me. Here I have a very large container. It might not be looking its best right now. I have this arborvita, lollipop arborvita. Just a couple little things on the edge here, a little boxwood and a miniature iris. Now, this particular miniature iris is not, I'm not in love with its blooms. It's kind of a really light yellow and it kind of browns really quickly, but I just want to have something here. So, someday I will replace that. And then this is the Prince Charles Clematis. I did quite a bit of research before buying this one. I wanted something that would bloom all the time and have tons of blooms. And this does it. Now, right now it doesn't have tons of blooms, but this is the time when the clematis wouldn't normally be blooming for us. And this one actually, has a decent amount of blooms. Let's come over here. So it does have some blooms right now. And when it's got its big flush earlier in the year, it's completely covered. So I've been very happy with this Prince Charles Clematis. Now, I might be jumping around, moving around too much. Love this epimedium. I mean, this is August. A lot of foliage doesn't look great for us here. This looks wonderful. I don't water it. I don't do anything. It just looks good. And then it has very sweet, light, delicate little yellow flowers in spring. Now, the red buds can kind of blend in with it. And so I have a big weed here. Okay. This is the Cliff Goldenrod. I put it here thinking it would get enough sun. I don't think it's getting enough sun. So that will probably need to move once again. I think I've moved it every year. So I've kind of been constantly trying to find the right spot for it. Here is the entrance to the back garden. That's just a little sneak peek for you. I'll be doing another back garden tour again pretty soon. Down here on the left, I have this Feathered Friends Ajuga, which I really love. I'm in the process of doing a double ball topiary here. And then the ground cover is the big root geranium. I need to trim back this wisteria quite a bit, I think. But I have wisteria, it's getting onto the neighbor's fence pretty bad. And then on the right, I have let, again, some morning glories reseed. I didn't plant any morning glories over there, but so you can see they do reseed quite a bit. Okay, I think I'm going to stop the tour there. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this tour. It's been a lovely morning for me. I'm a thrift store shopper, so I feel like my garden style kind of matches that. I'm like, what can I accomplish with very little money and a lot of creativity? Thanks for joining me in my front garden tour. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon in the back garden.